Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to cut through the complexity and give you those key insights.
That's the plan.
Today, we're pulling back the curtain on how organizations really work.
And how their financial health is verified.
Exactly. If you want that quick but deep understanding of what makes a business tick, or maybe way it's vulnerable,
Yeah.
you are definitely in the right place.
That's right. This deep dive is all about how auditors, how experts really get that profound insight into a company. Its operations, its environment, those crucial control systems.
And it's not just for audits, right? This is about understanding organizational health, spotting risks.
Absolutely. It's fundamental.
Okay, so our mission today, we're tackling two big interconnected areas. First up, understanding the entity itself and its whole environment. Then we'll dive into the world of internal controls and business processes. We want you to walk away feeling genuinely clued in.
Let's do it.
So, to kick things off, let's talk about the auditor's main quest, you could say. Why is risk assessment so fundamental?
Well, at its heart, these procedures are all about finding crucial material misstatements in the financial statements.
And material misstatement just means like significant errors or fraud, things that could actually mislead people reading those reports.
Exactly. Errors or fraud big enough to matter to change a decision someone might make based on those financials.
Okay.
And the impact of these assessments is huge. It shapes critical judgments all the way through the audit.
Such as?
Like deciding how big an error needs to be considered material. It guides how they evaluate the company's accounting choices, helps pinpoint the really significant risk areas,
Okay.
anticipate patterns in the data, and ultimately it dictates the entire design of everything else they do, all the subsequent audit steps.
So we're talking about specific risk assessment procedures here, getting that deep understanding of the entity, its environment,
Right.
and then, as we'll get into, drilling down into their internal controls.
Correct. And there's a really critical guiding principle here. Auditors must do this with an open mind. They can't just be looking for evidence that confirms what they already think or expect.
So no confirmation bias.
Exactly. They need to be actively looking for contradictory evidence, too. It's about objectivity, rigorous objectivity.
Okay, so let's unpack that. What are the main ways they gather this initial understanding? What tools are in their toolkit?
Well, a primary method is making inquiries. Lots of inquiries.
Is chatting with people.
Not just casual chats, no. These are systematic discussions with a whole range of people inside the company. Management, finance folks, the audit committee, internal audit.
Internal audit seems key there.
Definitely. Also, IT, marketing, risk management, even the company's own lawyers. But they also reach out externally.
Oh, like who?
To the company's outside legal counsel, maybe valuation experts they've used. Getting different perspectives is crucial.
So internal auditors are kind of like an early warning system, maybe.
Yeah.
Giving that inside track on operations and risks.
They absolutely can be. They often have a fantastic sort of real-time view. And this is vital. Inquiries alone are never enough. Whatever they hear in these discussions has to be backed up, corroborated by observing processes, inspecting documents, other procedures. You can't just take someone's word for it.
Got it. Makes sense. What else do they do besides ask questions?
Another crucial tool is analytical procedures.
Oh, okay. What does that involve?
It's essentially looking for plausible relationships in the data. Financial data, sometimes non-financial data too. Looking for patterns, anomalies, things that don't quite fit.
And during the planning stage, this is more high level.
Right. A high-level review, comparing current financials to budgets maybe, or to last year's numbers, spotting big swings in account balances.
What kind of tools do they use? Simple spreadsheets?
It can be.
Yeah.
Or it could be sophisticated data analytics software, especially for larger, more complex companies. But what's really powerful here is how these procedures help identify unusual stuff. Transactions, relationships, trends that just seem off.
Like red flags.
Exactly. Red flags that might signal a material misstatement. And this is especially critical for sniffing out potential fraud. In fact, there's a specific requirement for auditors to analyze revenue data for exactly this purpose.
Interesting. Okay, so inquiries, analytical procedures. What else?
There's also a mandatory discussion. The whole audit team has to get together.
The lead auditor, any specialists.
Yep. Everyone involved. And the key word for this meeting is professional skepticism.
Doubting everything.
Not quite doubting everything, but certainly questioning assumptions. It's where they hash out the significant risks, scrutinize accounting choices, flag unusual procedures, talk about the control systems, set materiality levels.
So it's a real strategy session.
Absolutely. Experienced team members share insights, less experienced members learn. It fosters that constant vigilance for misstatements, whether they're errors or fraud. And it's not a one-off meeting.
Oh.
No, this mindset, this discussion, it continues throughout the audit as things change or new information comes to light.
Are there other sort of background info sources they pull from?
Sure, they'll review external info industry journals, analysts' reports. They look at the results of specific fraud risk assessments they might have done.
Okay.
Information from when they first decided to take on a client or continue with them. Even relevant stuff from last year's audit. It all builds the picture.
So it really sounds like risk assessment isn't just a step you complete at the beginning, it's ongoing.
Precisely. It's dynamic. Initial assessments can change. Maybe control tests show something isn't working as expected.
Or they find unexpected errors later on.
Exactly. And when that happens, the auditor has to revise their plan. They adapt. That flexibility is key.
And I guess the size of the company matters here. Like, a small business probably won't have massive formal control manuals like a huge corporation.
That's a great point. Smaller entities might rely much more on the owner-manager being actively involved rather than extensive documented procedures.
So the auditor needs good judgment.
Professional judgment is absolutely vital to assess controls effectively in different situations. It's definitely not one size fits all.
Okay, let's dig deeper into understanding the entity itself. You said this is foundational, like the frame of reference for the whole audit.
It really is. Auditors need to grasp several critical factors about the company. First, just the basic nature of the entity.
Like its structure, ownership.
Exactly. Structure, ownership, governance, its business model, how integrated IT is. For public companies, the PCAOB standards require even more reading public filings, listening to earnings calls, understanding executive pay.
A lot of homework.
It is. Then they need to understand the entity's objectives, strategies, and related business risks.
So what the company is trying to achieve, how it plans to get there, and what could go wrong.
You got it. And these risks are real-world things. Industry changes, making products obsolete. A new product launch, driving up expenses. Or maybe creating pressure to fudge the numbers.
Right.
Expanding the business too fast and ending up with piles of unsold inventory. New regulations they might struggle to implement properly. Even things like climate change affecting financing.
Wow. Okay, so external pressures too. What about their accounting?
That's key. The selection and application of accounting policies. Auditors need to understand the choices the company makes, why they make them, if they change them, and if they apply them consistently. Especially for tricky areas, complex transactions, new accounting standards,
Makes sense.
and of course the entity's financial performance. How does management track success? Are there incentives, like bonuses tied to performance, that could create bias?
Potential pressure points.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They look at internal metrics, but also what external analysts and rating agencies are saying.
Okay, so understanding all these factors, industry, regulations, the business itself, its goals, risks, performance, this directly helps the auditor gauge the company's inherent risk, right?
Precisely. It's about understanding the susceptibility to misstatement before you even consider the controls they have in place. It's identifying the natural weak spots.
Got it. That's a really important connection.
And for big companies, groups of companies, they also need to understand how everything gets consolidated together. Now, related to inherent risk, we need to talk about inherent risk factors.
Okay, so these are characteristics that make something more likely to be misstated, even before controls.
That's it. Think complexity. Think subjectivity, like estimating future costs. Think rapid change in the business or industry. Uncertainty, the potential for management bias or outright fraud, the sheer significance or size of an amount, or the volume of transactions, or maybe a lack of consistency in how they're handled.
And these factors can overlap, I imagine?
Very often. High subjectivity often comes with high uncertainty, for example. That makes things doubly risky.
So the big takeaway here seems to be the more complex or subjective something is, the more skeptical the auditor needs to be, because there's just more room for error or bias.
You've nailed it. Professional skepticism has to go up. Now, another huge area is understanding the IT environment.
which is everywhere nowadays.
Absolutely everywhere.
Right.
IT touches everything, initiating transactions, processing them, reporting them. It fundamentally impacts internal control design and how audits are done. But the core audit objectives, they stay the same, whether it's computerized or manual.
So auditors need to understand the tech stack, basically. The hardware, software, network, operating systems, data storage cloud, or on-premise.
Exactly. They need that picture. They get it by touring facilities, asking lots of questions, but critically, they have to document it. The IT setup, the key applications, how they impact financial transactions.
And understanding the risks that come with using IT is part of that, too.
A huge part. That understanding directly shapes audit decisions.
Okay. Lastly, in this section, what about external factors? Things outside the company's walls.
Auditors have to consider a wide range. The specific industry competition, seasonality, the regulatory environment laws, politics, taxes, environmental rules,
Right.
government policy, spending changes, interest rates, the financial reporting framework itself, the accounting rules, big shifts in technology, supply chain issues, bottlenecks, cyber threats, quality control, and the overall economic climate, supply and demand, recessions, inflation, interest rates. It's a truly broad perspective.
So, wrapping your head around all this, why does an auditor, or frankly anyone interested in a business, need this basic grasp of economics? It feels like a whole other field.
It's not about becoming an economist, you're right. It's about context. It's about having that sort of sixth sense for underlying risks you might miss if you only look at the numbers in isolation.
Oh, okay, explain that. How does microeconomics help?
Well, understanding basic microeconomic concepts like supply and demand, or how sensitive demand is to price changes elasticity, as economists call it,
Right.
that helps you anticipate things. If a company sells a product where demand drops massively, if the price goes up just a highly elastic product and suddenly new competitors arrive, an auditor might think, okay, potential revenue pressure here, maybe inventory issues down the line.
Ah, so it informs where they might need to look closer.
Exactly. Or understanding the idea of profit maximization where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. If a company seems to be operating way off that mark, it could signal inefficiency or maybe, just maybe, aggressive accounting to hit targets. Another area to probe.
Okay, that makes sense for looking at one company. What about the bigger picture, the whole economy?
That's where macroeconomic concepts come in. Auditors need to understand business cycles.
Mm.
The economy expands, it peaks, it contracts, it hits a trough, it recovers.
And knowing where we are in that cycle matters.
Hugely. If the economy is contracting, an auditor might expect more pressure on revenues, higher risk of bad debts, maybe inventory piling up. In an expansion, maybe the risk is overly aggressive, growth outpacing controls.
And they use economic indicators to figure this out.
Yes, statistics that correlate with economic activity. There are leading indicators, like building permits, that suggest future activity.
Okay.
Coincident indicators, like industrial production, that move with the economy. And lagging indicators, like the consumer price index or unemployment duration, that confirm trends after they've happened.
So it's like checking the economic weather forecast.
And that's a great analogy. It helps put the company's performance and management's forecasts into a realistic context. Does this company's story make sense given the broader economic weather?
Brilliant. Okay, so we've got a handle on understanding the entity and its environment. Now let's shift gears to the second major piece, internal controls.
Right. The mechanisms designed to keep things on track.
Now, there are frameworks like COSO with 5 components, but auditors aren't necessarily testing all 5 in detail, are they? What's their main focus?
Their main focus is always on how a specific control prevents or detects and corrects material misstatements in the financials. That's the key question.
And while those 5 components apply conceptually to every company,
The depth of understanding needed varies. Size, complexity, they matter. Management needs to address the core principles, whether they use COSO or another framework.
so when does a control actually become relevant enough for an auditor to test it?
Several triggers. If it addresses a significant risk the auditor identified, if it relates to journal entries or other key adjustments, or if the auditor plans to rely on that control to reduce other testing.
Ah, okay, so it's a strategic decision sometimes.
Yes. And critically, given technology's role, controls over IT applications and the underlying general IT controls are almost always relevant.
Let's talk types of controls. You mentioned preventive and detective.
That's a fundamental distinction. Preventive controls are like putting up a fence. They're designed to stop errors or irregularities before they happen.
Examples.
Hiring competent people, good training, segregating duties so one person can't do everything.
Right, classic example.
Strong passwords, firewalls, antivirus software. Things that block bad stuff from getting in or happening in the first place.
Okay, and detective controls.
They're like the security cameras or alarm systems. They're designed to find errors or problems after they've occurred, hopefully quickly.
Such as?
Things like bank reconciliations, budget variance analysis, system logs that flag weird activity, intrusion detection systems. They spot things that might have slipped through the prevented net.
Got it. So auditors aren't looking at every single control. They use judgment to focus on the relevant ones, the ones most critical for reliable financial reporting.
Exactly. It's about focusing effort where it matters most.
How does IT change the game for internal controls? Does it just automate things?
It does much more than just automate.
Mm.
IT can impact all 5 components of internal control, both positively and negatively. Poor IT risk management weakens the whole system.
But good IT can strengthen it.
Definitely. It can provide timely info for risk assessment, automate controls for efficiency and consistency, and generate data for monitoring activities. This really comes alive when you compare manual versus automated controls.
Right, manual control is done by people. Good for things needing judgment, handling exceptions, unusual
It's
transactions.
true. But they have risks. People can ignore them, override them, make mistakes. They're less consistent.
And automated controls.
Performed by the IT system. Great for high-volume routine stuff. They're usually more reliable, continuous, accurate, timely, efficient, and often more secure because there's less human fiddling.
Okay. You also mentioned general IT controls and information processing controls. What's the difference?
Think of general IT controls, GITCs, as the foundation. They're policies and procedures that support the entire IT system's integrity and security. They apply broadly.
Across applications, databases, networks, operating systems.
Exactly. Concrete examples include things like access management, who can log in, what can they do, managing powerful admin accounts, even physical security of servers.
Makes sense.
Also change management, having a strict process for updating software or systems, ensuring changes are tested and authorized, and separating who can develop code from who can put it live.
Okay.
And IT operations management, things like scheduling routine jobs, reliable backup and recovery plans, and systems to detect network intrusions. These GITCs are crucial for trusting any automated process.
So if the foundation, GITCs, is shaky, the specific application controls might not matter much.
That's often the case. Now, information processing controls are more specific. They apply to the processing of particular types of transactions or data within an application.
Give me some examples.
Okay. Controls ensuring data transfers correctly between systems. Automated checks for mathematical accuracy. System checks that automatically flag invalid data entries. Required fields in a form. Even manual follow-ups on exception reports generated by the system. And controls over newer tech like blockchain or AI.
Got it. So with all these different controls, how does an auditor actually confirm their understanding? You mentioned walkthroughs.
Yes. Walkthroughs are a core procedure here. It means literally tracing a transaction.
From start to finish.
From its very inception, all the way through the company's processing systems, until it ends up in the financial statements, following its entire journey.
And the purpose is?
Several things. To confirm the auditor truly understands the process flow. To evaluate if the control's design is sound, could it actually prevent or detect an error? And crucially, to see if the control has been implemented.
Meaning it actually exists and is being used, not just a policy sitting on a shelf.
Precisely. Does it exist, and are people actually doing it?
How do they perform these walkthroughs?
Usually by selecting a single transaction and following it, or identifying the key steps for a certain type of transaction. But it's not just looking at screens. It involves inquiring of the staff who actually perform the tasks.
Asking them what they do.
Yes. How do they do it? Do they do it on time?
Right.
What happens if something goes wrong? An exception. And this is critical inquiry alone is not enough.
You mentioned that before. Corroboration needed.
Always. They have to combine inquiry with other procedures. Observing the control being performed, maybe reperforming it themselves, inspecting related documents or system logs.
So once they've understood the controls through things like walkthroughs, they need to evaluate and document them.
Right. Evaluation involves assessing the design, is it capable of working? And the implementation, does it exist and is it being used? We use inquiry, observation, inspection, reperformance for this.
And this understanding feeds back into the risk assessment, doesn't it? Even if they don't plan to rely on a control?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You need to understand the controls to properly assess the risk of material misstatement
And that understanding shapes the rest of the audit.
directly. It influences the nature, timing, and extent of the further audit procedures they'll perform. It helps tailor the audit.
Okay, here's a key point then. Auditors must document this understanding, right?
Yeah.
Especially for important areas.
Yes, document the understanding of control design and implementation is mandatory, particularly for significant risks. Controls around journal entries, any controls they do plan to rely on, and those critical IT general controls.
How do they document it? What does that look like?
There are a few common methods. Auditors often use the acronym FIND to remember them.
FIND. Okay, what's F?
F is for flowcharts, symbolic diagrams showing the flow of documents, processes, authority, very visual. Can be system flowcharts or specific IT program flowcharts.
Okay, all right.
I is for internal control questionnaires or ICQs. Basically, checklists with yes/no questions designed to pinpoint weaknesses. A no answer usually requires an explanation.
And
N is for narratives, a written description of the control system, essentially a flowchart in paragraph form, often better for simpler systems.
D.
D is for documentation obtained from the client, things like their own procedure manuals, organizational charts. The auditor reviews these as part of understanding the system.
So, FIND. Flowcharts, internal control questionnaires, narratives, documentation from client. Got it. Now, even with all this, controls aren't foolproof, are they? They provide reasonable assurance, not absolute.
That is a crucial distinction.
Yeah.
No system of internal control is perfect. There are inherent limitations.
Such as, why can't they guarantee everything?
Well, first, there's the risk of management override. Management is often in a position to bypass controls they themselves put in place.
Okay, that's a big one.
Second, simple human error. People make mistakes, misjudge things, even when using automated systems sometimes. Judgment can be flawed or biased.
Happens to the best of us.
Third, collusion. Two or more people working together can often find ways to circumvent controls designed to segregate duties.
Sneaky.
Fourth, external events completely beyond the company's control can impact operations or data. Think natural disasters, major cyber attacks.
Right, unforeseen circumstances.
And finally, sometimes the suitability of the entity's objectives themselves might be flawed. The controls might be working perfectly, but aiming at the wrong goal.
And auditors specifically look for that risk of management override, right? They know it's a key vulnerability.
Yes, identifying and assessing the risks of management override is a specific audit requirement due to its significance.
Wow, okay. We've covered a huge amount of ground. We went from that high-level view of the entity's world, the industry, the economy, its own goals and risks.
Right down to the nuts and bolts of specific controls, like access rights or reconciling accounts.
And seeing how they connect is key. Understanding the risks in the environment helps you understand why certain controls are important. We looked at economics, walkthroughs. It's quite a deep dive.
It really is. And the point isn't just audit theory. Understanding this ecosystem, how a business operates, how information flows, what keeps it accountable, that's valuable knowledge for anyone. It helps you identify potential strengths or weaknesses in any organization you look at. As an investor, an employee, a manager, anyone.
So what this means for you, listening, is that you now have a better framework, a way to look at business news, maybe an investment, even your own workplace, and ask sharper questions to see beneath the surface a bit more.
Exactly. And it leaves us with a thought for the future, doesn't it? With IT getting ever more complex, AI, cloud, cybersecurity threats, global supply chains constantly shifting, how do these traditional methods of understanding an entity and its controls need to keep evolving?
Right, to maintain that reasonable assurance in an increasingly complex world.
What new factors, what new approaches might be needed for an even deeper dive next time? Something to think about.